guys, Ash here in Raid Shadow Legends. Welcome to the video. Sending some love and some positive vibes your way, especially if you need them out there today. Today, I want to be a little vulnerable with you guys. Gather round. There's no secrets here. We're all going to be transparent and communicative about our mistakes in Raid Shadow Legends.
I'm the world's greatest superhero.
You're my greatest failure.
That's right, I invite you guys to share your mistakes in the comments below as well. That way other viewers can learn from them, right? So here are my, without a doubt, definitive top 5 mistakes that I've made through my illustrious 7 years here playing Raid Shadow Legends. I've got my 2019 badge to prove it, man. So that's an old school. Any of you guys have the the tutorial class of 2019? What is your tutorial class badge? Would love to see how long you guys been playing this damn game. All right, so starting out, my mistake number 1 is going to be, I think, by far and away, especially over the attrition of the last 7 years, this one can add up over time, and that is basically not enough farming, specifically during these events that are live right now at the time of this recording, these speed events. It is a 2x. I look for the 3x speed, the 3x Savage from Fire Knight's Castle specifically. But man, I'm a spender on champions in this game, right? And that's what Plarium wants us to do.
Congratulations, Mr. Krabs.
Hello, I like money.
They want us to spend on shard events inside Raid Shadow Legends, right? That's why they're always releasing new OP champions, right? They're selling you shards, they're selling you champions, champion passes, everything champion related and shard related. And golly, you can just look through my freaking YouTube channel history, and I have had a few, maybe 1 or 2 shard opening videos throughout the years, right? I can't even think of, I don't even want to think of how much money I've spent. And what has it gotten me? Well, it's gotten me 1,000,000 champions. But the truth is, I don't really need 1,000,000 champions in a game that you can't win. What you do need is, after you've been playing for a few years, whether you're a spender or a non-spender, a mid-spender, a high spender, you need kind of like a core group of champions, right? And so what this has led me to is 1,000,000 champions, and my gear is good. Don't get me wrong, I've been playing for 7 years. But it's not insane. It's not the same as the players who do spend, if you're going to spend in this game, right? But it's regardless. It's advice for everybody, regardless of whether you're a spender or a non-spender. But use your energy. Focus on gear a little bit more than maybe a lot of folks, yours truly included, focus on champions in this game, right? So the one thing, if I could go back, in all the time I spent focusing on champions I don't have versus gear I don't have, go back and take advantage of all of the, when I spent money for shards, again, this is, spender only advice here. I wish I could take away some of those, especially since you don't even get the champion 90% of the time that you're looking for, right? I wish I could go back and maybe not spend some of that money, and then also maybe spend some of that on, energy during these events so I can have a better gear for the champions that I do have. So that, number 1, that's for me, far and away, is not going after the 3x Savage more, the 3x speed more. If you look at endgame accounts, they have busted Savage and speed gear, just busted. And I frankly, I don't, All right, next is how I look at fusions. Mistake number 2 is how I look at fusions throughout the years. So I remember all the fusions that I didn't go for, that I missed, right? EMIC just comes to mind. First one that comes to mind on my account, right? And so many times in the past, we just got through talking about my number 1 mistake, about spending on, shards and more champion hunting. I actually have the opposite point of view as it pertains to fusions. Now, this just pertains to me. This is my account, my opinion, my experience with Raid. But I wish I had gone for every damn fusion in this game for a few reasons. Number 1 is, a lot of the times, fusions, when they come out, you think they're mediocre, and a lot of them honestly are. But I remember, like, as an example, right here in this faction, when Estrid came out, people were like, she's pretty good, but I think she's a beast of a champion, I still use Estrid on my account, even with the mythicals and everything else that I have, right? So I feel like sometimes, just the community at large, content creators, everybody and anybody, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know how the meta will shift. Moreover, sometimes champions just impress us after the fact. Sometimes crazy Infinity Shield teams that we don't even know about are invented after a crucial champion is released as a fusion. Moreover, now in the game, we have the token trader, right? We have the, token, I always call it the damn token trader. The fusion token system, right? So now, you know, we get these during a classic fusion and a mixed fusion, we actually get these tokens. So we're getting something in addition by going for a fusion, right? So we get that. And then the last thing is they can come out and buff some of these previously underwhelming fusion champions. They don't typically do a lot of champion buffs for fusions, to be fair, but they do them. And hey, I would love to have the champion, right? So now I look at fusions as somebody, you know, this is a hero collector game, right? As a collector, I'm trying to go for every fusion. I've been doing this for the last couple years now. The last fusion I missed was Mad Hatter, and I'm lucky enough to have pulled him afterwards. But man, I was even kicking myself for missing Mad Hatter. So basically, I had a lazy mentality in the early days of my raid account, where like, unless a fusion clearly and obviously blew me away, I wasn't really going to go for him. I'm like, whatever, man. I have to do all those damn events and stuff like that. But nowadays, especially as a creator, but even as a player of the game, I have a different mentality. I'm going to get my champion. I'm going to get my fusions. I'm still going to go for some shard openings here or there. I mean, you have to play other areas of the game to go for fusions, right? But I'm going to go for all my fusions, and then in addition to that, I will be selective about going for extra champions, right, in addition to that. But for all those reasons, I wish I went for more of the early fusions in this game. Number 3 is spreading my gear too thin. So this is something that veterans and even newer accounts can take advantage of, can learn from my mistake here, right? I talked about gear and how important it is, but you'll be in this situation as even like a relatively new player, mid-game player, let's just say, and especially endgame players. If you start to have a pretty big roster of champions, you get into this point in raid where you're like, wait, well, you know what? Necra is awesome. Maybe I should be using him more. Like, he's meta again. But the truth is, you might have 20 support champions that are viable in the meta, right? That you could be using a lot more, especially when it comes to PvP. But in PvP, you kind of have to make a decision at some point, because not every HP-based nuker can have your best HP-based nuking gear. And what I did on my account, I made a video talking about this at length more, but what I did is I spread everything out, you know? There was no best HP-based nuker gear on my entire account, right? I had some on Pred, some on Embrys, some on like Gizmak, whatever, some on Nice. I was spreading everything out because all those champions are beast mode. But now I consolidated. I had to make some tough decisions, right? I'm not playing Embrys anymore in the arena, which is crazy. He's one of the better champions out there. But I made a decision on my account, and everybody's decision is going to be different, because what factors into this in PvP? Well, your awakenings, your empowerments, and what other champions that you have that can suit or can serve, different roles, right? So I consolidated both my damage dealers. I consolidated all my speed, right? I tried to focus on maybe 3 or 4 champions that I wanted super fast, rather than having like 20 champions that were pretty fast, right? So consolidating your gear in PvP will get you more wins. Trust me on this, right? It will get you more wins. Now, that being said, I'm not saying consolidate to only 3 damn champions or 4 or 5. You will need different options, especially in live arena for counterplays and such like that, right? And not every champion requires your best gear necessarily, but overall consolidation, I think, is a key strategic, tool that you can use on your account to really just get your best champions moving faster, hitting harder, etc. And who those champions are, again, it's going to depend on your account. Number 4, I didn't follow rules for years. I didn't follow rules for glyphs, for ore, and for dust. What do I mean by rules? Dude, you ever go back and look at some artifacts or accessories on your account? You ever do this and think to yourself, what the hell was I thinking? You ever see, like, either that could mean something that you just rolled up, that you're like, what was I seeing in this piece of gear, right? Or it could be something that you like all of a sudden you have a maxed out glyph on, like you have a +8 speed or whatever, and you're like, why did I glyph that? you know? Well, I have certainly been in those, or even something as simple as just leveling up like a really trash piece of gear from years ago. You're like, what was I thinking there? And you're reminded of how dumb we all were when we start this game. This is a complicated game. Props to you guys because, odds are for the most part, I'm not getting a ton of new viewers nowadays, like brand new viewers, brand new to the game. I get a few, but most of you guys have been playing this game for at least a little bit of time, Anyway, I digress. I'm just thinking about back in the day, though. I think we take for granted what we don't know in the early days of Raid, right? Like, man, some of my old content, some of my new content, to be fair, but some of my old content was really trash. It takes a while to really understand this game, And when you think you understand, you probably don't. Anyway, I wasn't holding myself to any standards, right? So those three, let me go over those three things again, right? We're talking about glyphs, first and foremost, dust, and ore. You want to establish some sort of a baseline and rules that you follow, not to waste some of these precious and extremely valuable resources. These are resources that, you can't just buy in a game that you can pretty much buy anything, for the most part. First and foremost, I got to talk about haste glyphs, okay? Haste glyphs. Listen, these 6 stars are so valuable, so valuable. I'm almost afraid to even click it because I don't want to accidentally enhance. But especially once you get to the point on your account where you can start clearing Faction Wars hard mode, especially when you look at the epics and the legendaries of these hastes, but even, the regular uncommons and rares or whatever, this is a lot of speed, right? This is a lot of speed in a game where I don't care what anybody says, speed still rules Raid Shadow Legends in terms of the most important stat. Generally speaking, speed gear is still the best gear because you can farm it endlessly. Well, provided you have the energy. So, a simple rule: 6-star speed glyph. If you have a legendary 6-star speed glyph, you want to use it on quad rolls or quint rolls only, no matter what. You got to be disciplined, right? But even the regular 6-star, right? The old school 3 to 8. I used to use these damn things, I'm just going to speak for myself, so willy-nilly, I'd be like, I just want this champion faster, I'll just put it on a 1. I would put this on a 1 without even thinking anything of it. Nowadays, I'm patient. I don't need the fastest champion tomorrow. There's no big competition that I'm going to win tomorrow by having a 3 faster champion, right? There's no winning Raid Shadow Legends. It's a reminder to you guys. So now I value patience. I wait till I have the right piece of gear. Now, the same thing with the Chaos Dust. Listen, it's easy when you start saving up 70, 100, 1,000, some of you guys have, of Chaos Dust. It's easy when you have more to spend more. Don't rage your Chaos Dust. There might be a time and a place, of course, but take into consideration the base piece of gear that you're upgrading always, right? So if it's a mercurial piece that it's a good piece, it's a rare gear set, it's meta, it's super strong or whatever, there might be a time where you go pretty crazy on the Chaos Dust. But don't just go crazy hunting a random piece on a random champion that's not your, a go-to champion. It might be a faction war fill-in. You got to set rules for yourself. You have to have discipline with these resources. Because trust me, Plarium in the board meeting would be standing and laughing and cackling at you, right? Look at this player. They have to go farm another 10,000 battles in Sand Devil because they raged Chaos Dust, right? Same thing with Chaos Ore. You don't want to be using Chaos Ore on gear sets that you can farm, right? That means speed. In Savage, in all those great dungeon gear sets. Okay, there's not that many, but the dungeon gear sets, right? The gear sets that you can farm endlessly, again, there may be a time and a place to use it, right? On like a quad roll or something like that. I understand those situations. There is a situation. There's very few like hard and fast rules in Raid. However, you want to be using your ores on gear that is limited, right? So that would be like Hydra Clan Boss, Stone Skin, and Protection gear. That'd be Mercurial gear from Grim Forest. That'd be Merciless and Supersonic from the Cursed City. You can't just endlessly farm this gear. Thus, you do want to give yourself every opportunity to get the best piece of gear that you can. And that's when you want to use Chaos Ores. For me, I'm using it almost exclusively on Mercurial gear right now. but I shouldn't even say almost exclusive. Like, again, a good Supersonic, a good Stone Skin, whatever, I'll still use it on. But Mercurial is where it's at right now, so save your ores for those situations. And back in the day, even before Mercurial gear, I was just pretty haphazard with this stuff, you know? The last one is kind of the most basic one, but it's Reed. It's Reed. I know this sounds crazy to you guys. I know it sounds crazy. It sounds crazy to say this as a mistake, but I made it, so damn it, I'm gonna say it, right? Back when I'm gonna start with masteries, but it gets worse, okay? And I still make the mistake from time to time. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, right? In this game, you glean so much information just by the best way to understand, to win more, to progress faster and farther is not necessarily to go watch YouTube videos all day. You know, I'm hurting myself here. But just sometimes reading everything. Now, I'm going to go way back to the early days, the first, few months I was playing Raid. I would just blindly copy every mastery, every time from YouTube, from Hell Hades, or actually Hell Hades wasn't even around when I started. A Yumi Love, I would just copy everything mastery, boom, done. But I wouldn't even read to try to understand them. Moreover, when I got a new champion back in the day, I didn't even read their damn skills. I was just like, okay, they're supposed to be good. I'm just gonna do it. Just blindly build and go. And now the modern version of this, though, for, endgame players, is when there's a new meta champion, or a new champion for that matter. I'll just go with Arnie's a good example, right? A champion that you don't have. This is the key. A champion that you don't own, but is pretty good or is emerging or whatever. So I'm going to go with Arnie the White because I don't have him, right? And he is, I would say, an emerging champion in PvP right now. But read their damn skills. On champion, if you want to get better at the arena, read champion skills that you don't have. Understand those champions. Because when you run into a champion that, or when you run a champion that your opponent doesn't have, you have a big inherent advantage, and vice versa, because most players just lazily only focus on the champions that they have on their account. How do I know that? Because I do it sometimes. I'm like, I don't have Arnie the White. What does he do? He's got what, Death Brand or something? I'll have a vague idea of what they do, but I don't go in and understand. And the truth is, especially with mythicals, but frankly, with even legendaries nowadays, you think Solinar's a good example too, right? He's the most meta champion in the game right now, but you don't have him. Who wants to go read the entire kit of a champion they don't have and probably raged not pulling? I don't want to, but there's so much nuance in a lot of these champions, especially nowadays in Raid, especially the mythicals, right? But they have so much extra little things that you have. You might know the broad strokes, but a lot of little things you forget about, and that leads to mistakes in PvP, also wave content as they start to appear in waves and stuff, and hard content, but for the most part, take a champion like Sabriel or whatever her name is, Sabriel. She's busted, but the fact is most players don't even know what she does, because who wants to read about a champion that you don't have? So if you want to get better at Raid, read these things. Same thing with relics, right? Relics, man. Who wants to go read a bunch of mythical relics that you think you will never get? Be honest with me. Who's actually went in and studied every mythical relic and exactly what they do and how they can be neutralized and where they're strong and where they're weak? Not that many players. If you are one of them, then props to you. But it can be challenging. There's so much to focus on this game anyway. It can be challenging, and I've experienced it, knowing everything about every champion. But if you want to get better, eventually that's what you want to strive for. All right, guys, there it is. Those are my big mistakes in Raid Shadow Legends, I think, throughout the years. What about you guys? Have you made any of my mistakes? Do you think any of my mistakes are stupid? Have you made your own mistakes? Would love to hear from you either way in the comments below. Much love, and as always, take care, guys.